guys, I've been loving working with this Carnival at the End of the World. It's been such a good experience for me. I always knew, ever since this deck came out, I always knew that I wanted it in my life and in my collection. But for reasons other than merely using it as a tarot, it's been great for my imagination work. It's been great for the parts of myself that I like, separate parts of myself that I want to work with in a collaborative way. I love the use of clothing, costume, mask, the use of symbolism, the use of familiar, like the familiars, the animals present. It's always been, this card actually reminds me a lot of me. And there's just so many cards in here that I feel are parts of myself, very archetypal, and it's been such a good experience. So basically, I'm gonna go over some things that I do when I work with this and when I work with the parts of myself. When I first got this, I sat with it and it was like on my nightstand, and it acted like a very dreamy, you know, dream time. Play with it in the evening, you know, before bed, kind of a, you know, like by candlelight. It was a very dream-like setting that I proposed with the deck, having the deck. It was a very dreamy state when I first got it, and then the practice with it kind of shifted from learning about the decks, learning about the archetypes, into finding myself within the images, and then finding myself without parts of me that were in some of the images. And it really touched me into the shadows and the light, the shadow and the light, to be honest. What I did, so what I do with most of my things, is I ask myself questions. And so I wanted to come up with questions that the deck itself would ask me, and that go with the theme of this. So I wanted, basically, the overarching thing was that I wanted to meet myself at the carnival at the end of the world. And so if that was a thing, like, first of all, is it a carnival? Are all these parts of myself there at this carnival, this circus, right, that sits at the edge of the world, and what all of it looks like? This is under the big top that is my mind, under the big top that is the self. That's kind of how I've been approaching the practice with this deck. And so, like I said, I've been asking myself questions and then really trying to come up with answers in a very, again, dream-like, fluid way that is, I don't know, will be very fun and very imaginative. So I wanted to take y'all along that journey. I love this Devil card. I wanted to take y'all along the journey with me while I show you how I've been kind of, you know, doing this art self carnival at the end of the world process. You know, when I meet myself at the end of the world, and what I look like and feel like, and where the place is actually at in terms of like a biome, all of those things are relevant to the moment. And in each, like, not every time, but sometimes it shifts and changes, and then it'll be a different biome, a different place that I'm in, a different familiar that's with me, a different symbol, right? So I wanted to pose myself some questions to establish me in the moment, me as self, me finding myself and meeting myself at the carnival, at the circus, under the big top, at the end of the world. So I got some scrap paper, and I want to show you like how I map this out and what the questions are. So my first question is, what platform am I standing on? You know, what is the platform? Because if we know from the deck, each one of them stand on like the precipice or a separate platform. And so I kind of want to know, what does that look like? Does it have trees on it? Is it just fine grass? Is it ice? Is it crystalline? Or is this like, is it different? So there might be trees over here, right? But then there's a glade where I'm standing. There's a glade, an opening in there. And then in the glade, or off to the side of the glade, is I'm thinking that there's like some kind of water, like a creek or something, that kind of falls off of it. Falls off to the side in little little trickles off the side of this precipice. And then I got to thinking, okay, well, if it's a glade, it does have to have some geodes in it, maybe something possibly for me to mine, you know. So in this little area, it'd be like a little like layers of rock here, layers of rock down in the bottom, like kind of when we're looking at going to the core here, the core of the earth, I guess, or wherever I'm at. Then there has to be some kind of crystals that jut off there, you know, and they're shimmering and shining in all different colors, right? And I can mine them because they're on this. Now, one thing that was interesting when I meditate on what land I'm standing on, it's interesting because my mind went to, wouldn't it be great to stand on a piece of land that has always been mine? No amount of land that we could stand on here on earth has belonged to us, has belonged to even our ancestors. It belonged to somebody else. It belonged to someone else's ancestors. Normally. There's this, a lot of this going, you know, a lot of this, there's this awakening that we must realize about the land not being ours. But how great would it be to have land that has always been mine, has always been in my bloodline, has always been part of my ancestry. Now, I'm not going to find that here. I'm not going to find that here. But it can happen in other places. It can happen on my world. You know, my world. This is my world. And how sad it is that that I have to choose another world, a whole nother world besides Earth, where the land would be totally mine. So that's something interesting that I thought about, is the concept of ownership in land, and how we don't own any land here, but the land here at the carnival at the end of my world, I would own. And what that would feel like. I would have a responsibility to it, you know? And I want to be able to know and get to know all the spirits that are on this small piece of land that the figure that is me would stand on if I'd like drew this as like one of these cards, you know? So yeah. Okay, so that's the first question that I posed myself about using this deck, is what would the land that I am on look like? The second one is, what are the symbols present? In most of the cards that we see in the deck, there's some kind of symbolism. Of course, when we're talking about tarot has a structure. So there's going to be the like symbols of tarot, like the cups or swords or wands or elemental association, elements associations when we're talking about tarot. But would I have a symbol? Would I have something that is, again, totally mine? Totally something that I need, something that I would have to have. Maybe something that's intrinsically linked to that land. Maybe it's some kind of symbol that is part of me in an archetypal way, in a profound way, but also in profane and sacred ways. What are my symbols? Now I can use other decks to help me with this. Now I got a few of like my decks out. I got my Emblem Oracle, and this is my Wild Nature, Wild You Oracle. And I could sit here and play with the Carnival at the End of the World with other like Oracle decks. I would say Oracle decks when we're trying to answer questions like this. If you don't want the structure and the symbolism that's linked to tarot, I would use Oracle decks for this. And you can use the keywords, you could use, the pictorials, in whichever fashion, you would like to answer these questions. But say I'm going back to the land here because this is the Wild Nature, Wild You Oracle, right? And I just play around with the deck, and pull a card. Hope. Ooh, that's a nice card. Okay. So obviously I need some kind of vegetation on my land. So this cannot be something dry and desolate. It has to have something that can harbor growth. So that's what I would use. Like if I pulled this card in relation to which platform am I on, then I would need to think about the land in terms of growth and in terms of vegetation. Can I grow things on the land? But for an example, if like same thing with this, it has to be land that can yield crops. Is it ancient land? Is it filled with bone? Like that's something I'd want to continue to fill this with different parts of things. But is this an ancient, possibly even dystopian land that has lots of bones, and the sky behind me is red with the death of all the beings on earth? Possibly I'm the last one on earth. Is there water? Again, I knew that there had to be some sort of water. Are there pockets of activity that create these mineral deposits, right? So I can use, what's the weather like? I love this, love asking myself about the questions of this. But we can use this in terms of the land and in terms of symbols. But what if a certain type of weather needs to be present? Then that's a symbol that I would have to put around me, like on top of me, like maybe a cloud that's raining down, or maybe a cloud that's storming on me. That would probably be, or the wind is whipping my hair. That's probably which one I would pick. But what is the barricade? Do I have a barricade? Do I have a boundary around this piece of land? Because in a lot of these cards, you don't see any kind of barricades. They're just free and open, right? There's no fences around. Well, in some of them, I think. In some of them, there might be. But I think I saw a fence in one of them. But usually there's no sort of boundary. This land is theirs, and this land is getting used by them alone and their animal companion, I guess you could say. So I could use another deck for thinking about symbols, thinking about land, and things like that, right? But then I've gotten the Emblem Oracle out, which is my newest creation. Okay, and I can play around with this. Let's see what this one was. Sword. Oh, see, I got a sword, so I gotta have a sword sticking out. Maybe that's, if it's one sword, I'm thinking Excalibur, right? Like that's an archetype that I could probably embody on my piece of land, right? That's as a symbol of my sovereignty over that land. Ooh, I like that. So maybe right here there's like a rock that's growing out, and then I've got the sword here. got a sword here. There, it's like growing out like Excalibur. Oh, I hope y'all can see my drawing. It'll be better in a minute, I promise. But if I can pull some symbols here to see what is on, what's sitting beside me, right? Like what's important. Okay. So I got the sword, which I said reminded me of Excalibur, so I'll put that away. Then I got the wrench, which is maintenance. So that means to me that there needs to be some sort of, there will be maintenance to the land that I live on. And what does that look like? Like maybe I have a shovel. I'm thinking of shovels. See, I'm kind of like, I'm using this and it's kind of channeling through me at the moment. Then there's love. Love. Maybe I'm touching my heart. I like that. I'm touching my heart. Touching my heart. I like that. Okay. All right. Next, what is the symbols I have with me? Again, just to reiterate, these are symbols that are surrounding you. Like, see, here's a snake, right, and the raccoon. But then they also have this quiver full of swords. So these are all symbols that would be linked to these figures. And then if I'm using me as the figure, then what are mine? I love this one. Because you can't tell if they're floating or if they're, like, if this is like a balloon. Like, this is a balloon world. And they can carry their world around with them. Love that. I love the use of imagination with this deck. So I don't always use it for like tarot or even possibly oracle. I'm using it for imagination work and to work on me. The next thing, let's see. Do I have a familiar? Okay, because we're kind of judging down into like me being the last thing we work on. So what is my familiar? I would take this to be like, what is the animal companion, the fetch, if you will? What is the animal companion that I will have with me? I would like to say it would be a bird. And I know it would be flying. It wouldn't be sitting somewhere. Maybe perched on my shoulder. It could be perched on my shoulder, I guess, but I don't know why the wings are like this. It could be flying like this, I guess. It could be flying above me, like circling above me. But I also like that it could be perched on my shoulder. Maybe, possibly. So a bird of some kind. I think it would have to be a bird. And then I could probably have many, I guess, many animal companions. Then the next question I pose myself is, we talked about it being me being the sovereign of the land, but is there a god or a goddess? Like, is there a religion of the land? Is there a spirituality of the land? This could be my spirituality, or it could be something totally different. Maybe something that falls over the land because it's linked to land. So I don't know, like, is there a god or a goddess or a deity that resides, overarchingly, like domed over this land? And how would I convey that in the art piece? Another question, that with all of this, am I suffering? Because in some of the cards, let's see, in some of the cards, like this one, they're laying down like they're dead. So are they suffering? Are they bored? Is there like discontent? Is there fear? Like, am I comforted or am I suffering in some way? And what emotion is playing out in like a day-to-day sense? I think that I would probably have some sort of bored expression, almost like a deadpan expression on my face. Because I'm trying to immortalize myself here in this art piece. So would I be, I don't think I'd be smiling, because I'm typically not in a normal way. I don't smile all the time. So it would be more of a deadpan, bored expression on my face. I would be standing up. But one thing I noticed when thinking about this is I don't know if I would be standing on the land. I think I'd be sort of hovering, like a levitating over the land. And I'd be barefoot. I already knew that, but we're going to get to that in a minute. Do I have a mission? What is the mission of me on this island that is mine, right? Some of the cards, because they're linked to tarot archetypes, I feel like some of these beings, figures, what have you, have like missions. Something that they're carrying out. This kind of goes hand in hand with another question that I posed, and that is, do I have a talent? As this is a circus or a carnival, okay, at the end of this world, at the end of my world, do I have a talent to bring? Am I the ringleader? Am I some sort of familiar trainer? Do I know how to juggle? You know, is the talent on my looks? Is the talent go on what I can do with my, in terms of contortion with my body? Is my talent something that I can do like sword swallowing? Ooh, I like that, sword swallowing. Now, I can't do any of that. Juggle or sword swallow or play with pain. Or I'm really actually very flexible, but I'm not a contortionist, so I don't know about that. But do I have a talent that I'm bringing to this carnival? Because carnival to me implies this collective nature. Now, this could be carnival, you know, like in those Pirates of the Caribbean movie where Jack Sparrow's in Davy Jones's locker and he's running a ship with a whole bunch of himselves. That's kind of how I see this. This carnival is a whole bunch of me's, and we're enacting out these acts, the circus acts, if you will. What are they? And which one do I want to immortalize in an art piece, that if like I were to draw myself as one of these cards? So do I have a talent? What is my talent? I do like how some of the cards aren't figures. Like they're something else. Like they're just the familiars. So I like that. You see how this is a male person? That's what they're bringing to the carnival. And sometimes I'll even go one step further with all this. In terms of a talent, where's the other stack of this deck? I think I split it up in its many forms. Okay. So I could use this deck just like I would the other deck and try to see if I could conjure up a talent for me, a mission, a talent. What am I bringing to this carnival that will be immortalized in this art piece? You know, like what am I doing here? What am I doing in this carnival? What is my act? You know? Okay, what's my act? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at this. Oh, we got the Queen of Swords. Doesn't that just look like the tattooed lady? Love it. So I like this. This is very royal. This is very ecstatic. There's an ecstaticism with this madam. I love the tattoos, but I also love these bands that run up their arms. And the neck piece. So there's jewelry involved. I like that. The the talent here, because that's what I pulled this for, looks like dance. Some sort of dance that's altered state of consciousness dance. So that's what I'm bringing. So altered state, ecstatic dance, I guess. Ecstatic dance, altered states. So that's what this linen is bringing. Ooh, and I like that there's a world here. It's not really a place. It's the entire world. As a queen, that makes sense to me. As it being a court card, it's not necessarily on one plot of land. It's like the whole world, you know, my whole world. So do I have a mission? It's ecstaticism. It's altered state of consciousness, right? The one thing I like is that am I scared or comforted? I'm, like I said, the bored deadpan expression. I don't think I'm not suffering, and I'm not comfortable either. I think that comfortability would make me complacent in my world. And then I think suffering would make me hate my world. So I have to be somewhere in the middle. But then if I'm, you know, am I scared or empowered? I think that that's a different thing. And that's another question I'm going to pose myself is, am I scared to be here, or am I feeling empowered to be here? But that could be ego. I think that can go into a little bit of ego. So I think that if I'm the sovereign here in this plot of land at the end of the world, at the end of my world at this carnival, I would feel empowered. I do feel that. Okay, so let's talk about me. Let me get to a card because I want to kind of map. And what I will do here is like go through the deck, find some figures that I relate to, and see. Oh, I like him. I like him a lot. Okay. Let's see which ones remind me of me. Okay. Yeah, I like that one. Oh, this Hangman is beautiful. Oh my God, I just love this deck. Yes. Yes. So when you're talking about yourself, okay, maybe it's definitely me. Just going through the deck. Okay. Now, okay, so here's some cards that remind me of me in the deck. We already pulled the Queen of Swords. She does remind me. This figure does remind me of me. So I think these three remind me the most. In terms of ecstatic dance, I do like this card. I like having, like I said, I had the bird on my shoulder, but I like almost that I could have a part of the bird as my familiar be a part of myself, like Minotaur, you know, satyr, you know, kind of I'm with the animal in an embodied way. So I like that. I like the figure here for the way that they're looking at their bird. But again, I don't know if I'll be this or this, if it'll sit on my shoulder or if it won't. I just love that this is like this ibis that is, again, mixed with the human part of them. And they have their eggs, and the eggs is what they're pouring in and out of. I just fucking think that's ingenious. So these two go hand in hand, like somewhere down there. I like, of course, because I like winter, I'm surprised that my plat of earth here won't have any winter on it. but that's just because I'm doing this moment to moment. If I were to check in with myself and do it again, I might be standing on a block of ice, or I'm in, you know, in the throes of a blizzard where you can't even see me. I'm talking about this as if I were a drawn card. If like I was the drawn card. So I don't know. It's possible that in another time, if I were to do this exercise again, I'd have a thing of ice. I like something on their back. I like them being kind of this shibori roped in bondage, but I don't think this one, I think I'm more free because this is my talent here as a staticism. I'm not going to be bound in any kind of way. Again, same. I'm not really bound. I'm not in any kind of bondage. And I'm not suffering or comforted. So I'm like in the, you know, slid in the middle. I love the use of veils and cloth and use of fabric in this deck. That really gets my creative juices flowing. So I might have some kind of draped fabric around me, almost like this, but not, it's more drapey, toga-esque. So I don't know. So here's what we're working with. All right. These are the cards that I pulled. Let's see. I want to know what, you know, okay, put the birds over here until I figure out where the bird's going to go. This is one thing that I'd like to think about too. If I'm thinking about me as a figure here, okay, which way am I facing? Am I facing towards the person, towards the world, or is my back to the world? I do think that if we're still going with the altered states, I'm conditioning the dance to enact this ecstatic altered state of consciousness, then I would be facing the world. I wouldn't be facing away from it. I could possibly even be kind of cattywampus a little bit. I like that too. Like I'm not fully facing, but I'm not fully turned away. I'm not shunning it. I'm not shunning the world and all the parts of me that I'll see in other times. So I think that it'll be a mixture, maybe, possibly. Like, kind of like this. They're not really facing the, well, facing the for lack of a better term, facing the camera, facing away from it. So I like that there can be some kind of in between. I'm a very liminal person that way. So put them up there. I like the dress here. I like the veil. I like, you know, I like cloaks a lot. I like veils. I like robes. So even if I'm in this dance, what would I be wearing, right? So, and what would my hair be doing? I already said my hair would be blowing in the wind. So, we're going to blow in the wind. And the hair is blowing in the wind, right? And then big shoulders. I'm a big shoulder girl. Facing this. Am I dancing? Let's see. Am I dancing? Yeah, I'm kind of, this is like I'm facing this way. Face looking up this way. Hair blowing this way. I'm looking up this way. Is my hand up here? I feel like my hands are up, or at least one is. And this one's going like this. This is going like this. Was his hand all the way up? All, maybe possibly like this. Ooh, I like that. I like that the hand would go like this. I like that. Okay, I like that the hand would go like this, and this one would palm up. I like the palm up. Palm up. We're receiving spirit. We're receiving spirit, almost like the Egyptian dance. We're receiving spirit. But my torso down here is twisted. So this is my back. Like this is my hip. This is my hip. This is my butt, my bottom. My butt's bigger than this. There's another hip. Rolls. Fat rolls. Gotta represent. Oh, I like this a little. Put the hair there. And that would make more sense. My face would have, I mean, this is not proportioned. This is just a rough sketch, right? So anyway, like I'm trying to rough this out. Ooh, I like that my hand would be here, but then the bird would be in my hand. 2 in the hand and 1 in the bush. I'm not gonna draw that, but I like the bird being in my hand. Like it is the spirit, or it could be a spirit. So anyway, this is how this is. This is my very organic take on all this. These are questions that I pose myself about like when using this deck, when wanting to visit the carnival at the end of my world. So to like, I'll touch on the art piece in a second, but let's recap the questions. What is my platform? What is the land that I'm standing on? Is it land at all? What are the symbols that are intrinsic to the land or to me that have to be present on this dome, on this little plat here? Do I have a familiar? What is it? What, sorry, I shook the camera. Do I have a familiar? What is it? Is it an animal? Is it from the animal kingdom? Doesn't have to be, but is it? And then what kind is it? Are you suffering? Are you comforted on this little island? Do you have a mission? Do you have a talent that you're trying to do in some sort of act for the carnival, for the circus? Are you cared for? Again, are you suffering or comforted, or are you scared? Do you feel empowered? Are you the sovereign, or is there some sort of deity that's that resides over this whole land that is yours here? Like it doesn't belong to you still, it belongs to this greater deity. And who are they? In terms of you, how are you positioned here? You're trying to immortalize yourself on this island that is at the precipice of this world of yours. How are you positioned? In which direction are you facing? What are your hands doing? What are your feet doing? What are you wearing? What is your facial expressions? Are you wearing a costume or are you nude? I think the last question that I pose myself when working with this is, what is the legacy? What do I want to leave on this island? What changes do I want to see happen in the world that you're living in right now? How can you kind of play this out in this astral world here, this astral carnival, to enact change in your real world? What is your legacy? And how would you immortalize that in the art piece? All right, guys. Let me know how you liked this little exploration. I hope everyone's having a good day. Much love.